Hi, I'm Paul Edwards, author of the Mourner's Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Tonight I'm here with our friend Frankenstein because I've just finished watching the 2025 film Frankenstein, the Del Toro film. First of all, this film is amazing to look at. Visually, every frame of it is striking. Even if you didn't care for the story, it would be worth watching this film just for the art of it, just to see it. In terms of the adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein, which of course has been adapted to film many, many times before, the previous Frankenstein movie that this most closely resembles is, if you remember, the 1994 Kenneth Branagh film, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Basically, if you took that 1994 film and had made it with CGI, you would have something pretty close to this adaptation. It begins the way that you would expect it to begin, with that description, at the North Pole, with the stranded ship that's trapped in the ice encountering Victor Frankenstein and then the man-made monster that he's been hunting. And as in other adaptations, we first hear Victor Frankenstein tell his version of the events that have led up to this to the ship's captain. But halfway through the movie, when Victor's done telling his side of the story, we then hear the monster's side of the story. And this is an interesting change from previous film adaptations. We have a balance. We hear the story from Victor's perspective, and then we hear other events from the monster's perspective. The monster in this is much closer to the way he was in the novel than in some other adaptations. He's articulate, intelligent, complex, not just a, grunting, loping aberration. And I'm a big fan of the 1931 Frankenstein, the James Whale Frankenstein, starring Boris Karloff. And I still am. That's still my favorite Frankenstein adaptation. But I'm the first to admit that the 1931 movie, strayed pretty far from the book. This 2025 adaptation is much more faithful to the book. So if you have read the book and would prefer your movie adaptation to be closer to the book, you probably will be happy with this adaptation. There's one slight nitpick that I have, but because I want this review to stay spoiler-free, I have to be careful how I phrase it. There's a death that occurs at one point during the film that it would have made much more sense if the monster had been directly responsible for that death instead of other circumstances causing the death. In terms of the development of the monster's character, it would have fit very well into the story if the monster had been responsible for that death, and that would explain the change in the monster's behavior. But it doesn't have to be perfect to be great. It is a great film, and I highly recommend it. Listen, if you're a fan of classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon, where I've written a series of novels that all take place in a haunted forest. Different monsters in each book, different cast of characters in each book. All they have in common is the location. You definitely ought to check them out if you're a fan of B-movies and monsters in general. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books. Thanks for letting me talk to you some about the 2025 Frankenstein. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.